What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Watch It in Action. I'm BouseFeenux, and today we're going to be taking a look at Wukong, the Monkey King, who was just released not too long ago in Update 18. And he's been out for a little while in China Warframe, and I gotta say, like, since he's been released, he's quickly becoming one of my favorite frames to play when I'm just, doing an exterminate mission or any kind of DPS related activity. So that being said, I've got pretty much one build for him, and I'm sure people have come up with a lot of stuff. He's still kind of new, so I don't really think he's been super min-maxed yet as far as I've seen. The build that I've come up with I think is pretty self-sufficient, and it's pretty effective, but it's going to be built basically around these two abilities here, Primal Fury and Defy, and we'll show you how those work here in a second, but first let's take a look at the build. We don't really have any special augment mods because there aren't any for Wukong yet. So the build is pretty general. We've got, some power damage mods, we've got some duration mods, we've got some health, stuff like that. He's got pretty decent armor, pretty high health, and that armor is going to allow us to take advantage of that health. And we're also using Rage, which I use on Valkyr and a couple other frames to help restore the energy here, because Primal Fury is a toggled ability, and that's affected by duration. So as that's ticking down, we want to get Rage here and restore our energy back up. And with Defy, we can't really die. And I'll show you how that works here in, like I said, just a second, but we can't really die when we're using Defy, and as we continue to lose health, we're going to continue to gain energy. So it's kind of a cycle here. We lose our health, we gain our energy back, we use some of our energy to gain our health back, etc. It kind of goes in a circle here. You'll notice that I'm using Stretch too. And this is kind of an interesting choice. You can swap this out if you really want to, but I find it pretty useful because it increases the range of the Iron Staff when we're using Primal Fury. But onto the abilities here, we'll take a look at some of these real quick. Iron Jab is essentially just, he uses his Iron Staff to, it extends. It's kind of more of it's got a small AoE of like 2.9 meters, but that's really close. You're not going to hit any other enemies with that unless they're standing like right next to each other. But essentially how this works is it's just a staff that extends and pokes an enemy and knocks them down, essentially. Kind of exciting, but altogether not very useful, especially when you compare that to Primal Fury. Defy is really the first skill this build is built around, and essentially how this works is it's a toggled ability, and it'll stay up as long as you have energy to keep it active, just like any other toggled ability. And when you were to take damage that would result in your death, you'll instead be restored a certain portion of health that's going to go down each time you die. So I think the modifier is 75%, then it drops down to 50, and then 25%, and, so on and so forth. The cool thing about this is that restoration percentage is reset every time you toggle off and toggle on the ability. So let's say you die, and you lose that restoration percentage. Just turn the ability off and turn it back on, and it'll be reset again. So that's pretty nice. The trade-off for this is that you'll lose a percentage of your energy for restoring your health when you die. So, and it's not your max energy pool, it's the energy you have at the time. So whatever you decide to do for your build, your energy multiplier might be different, but again, that doesn't change. That's a static thing. That doesn't change every time you die. That's just a static thing that sits there. So we see that it costs 4.21 energy per second. That's pretty expensive. With this build, I tried to get it as cheap as possible without sacrificing any damage, and this is pretty much what I came up with. But if you're in an area where you're taking a lot of damage, you're going to be restoring your energy pretty quickly. The other little bonus to this skill is that it gives you an invulnerability phase, so right after you die and your health is restored, you'll be invulnerable for 8.9 seconds with this build, and that's based on duration. The next skill here, Cloudwalker, is kind of more so an invisibility. It's almost like Limbo. You just turn into a cloud of mist and you can fly. It's not very fast, and the most disappointing thing with it, I think, is that you can't pass through laser grates in spy missions without setting off the alarm. So that's kind of unfortunate. This is basically a hybrid skill. It's got a duration, and as you move, you lose energy as you move, which I think is kind of interesting. No other skill really kind of does that. But, yeah, this isn't like a super useful skill. I don't ever really use this very much. But you can play around with it and see what you think. The last skill here, Primal Fury, is, kind of goes in tandem with Defy here. And basically this turns his weapon into almost like Excalibur's Exalted Blade, but it's a staff instead. And as you do combos, as you continue to hit enemies, the staff will increase in length, and it's also dependent, that length is also dependent on the mods you have on your melee weapons. So if you have primed reach, you're going to have some crazy melee range, and that range is also affected by the power range, which is why we're using stretch. So this is a toggled ability as well, using 2.53 energy per second. So when you have both of these up, you can bet that you're going to be using energy pretty quickly, and he has sort of a smallish health pool, even with a max rank prime flow, only a little over 400. That's not that impressive, but with the rage, that's going to help us mitigate that energy loss. And you only really need to use Defy when you're pretty sure you're going to be entering a tough area that you're going to get killed. So like Tower 4, you know, the shotgun guys that'll pretty much one-shot you, bombards, things like that. You want to make sure you have Defy up for those situations, but other than that, you don't really need to use it all the time, just fairly often. So that being said, let me show you how I play this build, and we'll spawn some enemies here, and I'll kind of show you like what I'm going for. So what I'm going to do before I go into a fight is usually I'll throw up my Defy, which I'll show you here in a second after I get these guys out on the floor. We'll throw up Defy, which is number 2, and then we'll use the Primal Fury, which is number 4, and that spawns our little staff here. Now, this doesn't take into account the stats on your melee weapon, but it does take into account the mods that you've got going on here. So it's got some combos. If you actually look at your combos, if you press escape and look at your melee combos, this has its own set of combos like Exalted Blade or Valkyr's Hysteria. So you can take a look at those. The right-click combo, if you just hold down right-click, is pretty much the most useful one, in my opinion. And if to use that the easiest way, you just hold down right-click while you're attacking, and you'll get this ability here, pretty much. It'll look like this. It's good crowd control. It throws enemies around. And as you see, these are level 90 Corrupted Lancers. These are pretty tough dudes as it is. And we're doing a pretty good job. But you see, as we take damage here, I'm going to let them, you know, kill us, quote fingers, and we get that Defy for 8 seconds. So you notice we got 555 health back, and if we have Life Strike on our weapon too, we can just channel all that health back anyway, so honestly, the health loss is really arbitrary. That 8 seconds is going to give you more than enough time to hit an enemy and get all your health back with Life Strike, just because Primal Fury does so much damage anyway. And you notice here that, you know, our energy is ticking down pretty quick, but we haven't run out yet. You just got to stand still every once in a while and let an enemy hit you, and then restore your health if you don't want to take that Defy penalty unnecessarily. Or you don't even have to use Defy at all if you think you can handle your situation pretty well. But some of his other abilities here, this is the Cloud Walker. We can turn off Defy because we're going to lose a lot of energy doing this. So it just flies around. Like I said, it's not very fast. It's kind of slow. You get this cloudy effect on your screen. You can, fly up to areas, stuff like that. And as you're moving here, we're going to, be losing energy as we move, like, whatever the multiplier was, 1 point whatever, per, meter or whatever. And then you notice too that it also has duration. If you want to get out of this, you don't have to wait for the duration to go down. You just toggle it again. And that makes you pretty much invisible. That guy didn't know we were here. And then his number 1 ability here is Iron Jab, is just this. You just poke him in the butt with a giant rod. And that's pretty much the ability. Nothing too exciting about that. But really, I mean, this is Wukong, guys. It doesn't really get more simple than this. You toggle the 2 abilities and then you start beating stuff up. So like I said, as you attack, that'll increase the range of your Primal Fury, your Iron Staff, or whatever. But pretty neat frame. I like him. He's fun. He's really cool looking. Got a lot of good melee capabilities. Pretty self-sufficient with the Rage mod and everything like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit about Wukong that you didn't already know. And I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.